My name is Ethan, an ordinary senior backend developer at a tech company in City A. If life were a piece of code, I'd say my main routine had been running very smoothly. No earth-shattering algorithms, but the logic was clear. Until the third year of my relationship with Vivian, when a fatal bug that couldn't be fixed suddenly popped up in my code base. It was a Friday. I'd left work early for a rare change, holding the Black Forest cake Vivian loved, standing at the door of her apartment. The door wasn't fully locked, there was a gap. I was about to push it open when a sound from inside made my blood boil. "Colin, don't be like this, what if Ethan comes back?" It was Vivian's voice, laced with a sticky, panicked coquetry I had never heard from her before. "Let him come back if he does. At worst we'll lay it all out. Vivian, while I was abroad these past years, my heart belonged only to you." A man's voice answered, magnetic, deep, the kind of lead male voice you only hear in a romantic drama that makes it to the finale. I froze where I stood, the cake box in my hands crushed out of shape. Through the crack in the door, I saw the man called Colin with his arm around Vivian's waist. Her eyes were rimmed in red, like a damsel who had finally found her hero. She was sinking into his embrace. Colin, that name is all too familiar to me. Vivian's diary had his name on the first page, she murmured it when she got drunk. I used to think it was nothing more than a faint, unrequited schoolgirl crush, and I even magnanimously tolerated it. Only now do I understand that I am not her destination, I am merely the temporary storage data she used to fill the void while waiting for the true God to arrive. The most ironic part is that Colin already had a fiancé. A few days ago Vivian was complaining to me that Colin, that big name from university, was returning home to get married, a business alliance marriage, and the other party was a ruthless career woman. And in the blink of an eye, she herself became the pure love war god, who intruded on someone else's marriage. I didn't kick the door in and sob hysterically like on TV, nor did I smash the cake in their faces. As a competent programmer, my first reaction was, cut losses in time, clear cache with one click. I quietly left the cake at the door, took out my phone, and texted Vivian, "Let's break up. I'll have someone come pick up my things. I wish you and your white moonlight 100 years of happiness, though it seems he's about to get married." Blocked, deleted, all in one go. That night I sat on the curb drinking. I didn't cry, I just felt a pain in my stomach. 3 years, over 1,000 days and nights. I bought her bags, drove her to and from work, rubbed her belly through nights of cramps, and in the end I became a joke. It turned out that an ordinary person's devotion, in the face of the blinding radiance of a white moonlight, was worth less than a glow stick. The aftermath of a hangover is that the next morning at work, my brain felt like it had been run over by a truck. I sat at my desk with 2 huge dark circles under my eyes, mechanically tapping out code. Just then, the CEO's assistant came running in on high heels, her expression tense as she tapped my shoulder. "Ethan, the CEO wants you to go to her office. Now. Immediately." The CEO. Selena. My heart dropped. Selena was the company's second largest shareholder and, in practice, the one who ran the operations. She was 28 this year, with a neat short haircut, tall, aloof, and decisive. At the company, she was a walking air conditioner, even the project directors would break out in a sweat when they met her. When did I, a low-level backbone coder, manage to rile this great Buddha? Could it be that I went off wandering in the ether last night and deleted the production database? With the mood of someone about to be led to the gallows, I knocked and opened the president's office door. Selena sat behind the wide desk, flipping through a file. Hearing the noise, she lifted her head, those clear, water-bright eyes locked onto me. "Sit." Her voice was cool, betraying no emotion. I edged over to the sofa and sat down carefully, hands on my knees, looking like a schoolkid summoned by the dean of discipline. "Boss, you called for me. Is there a problem with the social app system architecture recently?" Selena said nothing. She took a thick craft paper bag from the drawer and tossed it lightly onto the coffee table. "Look." I opened the bag in bewilderment. Inside was a stack of photographs. The men and women in the photos were intimate, embracing, kissing, with backgrounds ranging from upscale restaurants to budget motels, and the two people in the pictures were Vivian and Colin. My head buzzed. I shot up and looked at Selena. Selena slowly took off her glasses, rubbed the bridge of her nose, and a self-mocking curve tugged at the corner of her mouth. Let me introduce myself. Colin is my fiancé. Or rather, the man who is about to become my husband in the eyes of the law. I drew in a sharp breath. The rumored Colin, the one who arranged business marriages and was ruthless in his methods, turns out to be my direct superior. Is this world one huge amateur troupe, or one enormous closed loop? President, what are you? For a moment I didn't know what expression to put on. Two people who'd both been cuckolded holding a big meeting in the office at the same time. The scene was just a little too bizarre. I've been tailing Colin for a while and I've collected irrefutable proof of his affair. Selena folded her hands, leaned forward, and her powerful presence made it hard for me to breathe. I also looked into that woman's background, and then I found you. Ethan, senior development engineer, dating Vivian for 3 years. She paused, looked me straight in the eye, and asked each word deliberately, are you willing to be a backup for 3 years? The question was like a knife, striking precisely at my heart. I gave a bitter laugh and leaned back against the sofa. What good does resentment do? CEO, I'm just an ordinary person. By the time I found out yesterday I had already broken up with him. One of them is a returnee elite, the other a love-struck romantic. What can I do besides wishing them locked together forever? A flash of light passed through Selena's eyes, then she said, ordinary people can fight back too. I have no feelings for Colin. This engagement was only because we'd reached the age, with both families pressuring us to marry. I agreed just to get some peace. Now he's handed me such a big handle, I won't strip Colin and the Gu family down to the bone, then I'm not Selena. I hunched my shoulders. Sure enough, a strong woman is a strong woman. When she's been cheated on, her first instinct isn't to cry but to figure out how to skin the other party. So, what do you want me to do? Be a witness? I asked. No, having witnesses would be too easy for them. I'm going to call off the engagement completely, and I need to leave the Gu family no room to object, and I also have to silence my parents. Selena stood up, came to me, and looked down at me from above. Ethan, I need you to cooperate with me in putting on an act. An act? Pretend to be in a relationship with me. Be my boyfriend for 1 year to deal with my parents. In return, your year-end bonus this year will be tripled and you'll get a promotion. After a year, we'll break up amicably, and my parents will have an explanation. What do you say? I was completely stunned. The plot twist had already exceeded the logic of my algorithms. A billionaire, stunningly beautiful CEO wanted to hire me, an ordinary programmer making $25,000 a month, to be her fake boyfriend. Madam CEO, you can't be serious. I forced out a few dry laughs. I may not be ugly, but next to someone like Colin, the kind of returned son heir, you'd make me look like a security guard who just arrived from the countryside. Do you think your parents would buy it? Selena raised an eyebrow and, for the first time, smiled. The smile was like the first thaw of ice and snow, dazzling me until I felt dizzy. I've looked into you. You're dependable, trustworthy, your social circle is clean, and most importantly, you obey. My parents have had enough of playboys like Colin, now they prefer straightforward guys like you. So tell me, will you do it? I thought about the temptation of my year-end bonus tripling, and then about the likely priceless expressions Vivian and Colin, the trashy couple, would make when they heard the news. I slapped my thigh. I'm in. President, no, girlfriend, starting today, my code and my body are at your command. Once the deal was struck, Selena's ability to execute was nothing short of terrifying. That afternoon, she took me to the most expensive bespoke men's tailor in town. Seeing myself in the mirror, wearing a haute couture suit and with my hair meticulously styled by the stylist, I realized for the first time that if I tidied myself up, I could pull off a bit of that domineering CEO aura. Selena stood behind me and nodded slightly. Good foundation. From now on, don't wear that programmer's standard windbreaker anymore. At your command, boss. I saluted her jokingly. That night, Selina arranged for Colin and both parents to meet at a private, highly discreet home-style restaurant. As the final guest, I was escorted into the private room by Selina halfway through the banquet. The moment the door opened, the atmosphere inside froze. Colin was seated among them. When he saw Selina holding my arm, his brow immediately knit. "Selina, who is this? This is supposed to be a family gathering between our two households. It's not appropriate for you to bring an outsider, is it?" Colin's parents also wore displeased expressions. Selina snorted coldly, ignoring Colin entirely, and instead tossed that stack of infidelity photos down in front of both families' parents. "Uncle Goo, Aunt Goo, a marriage between our families would have been a good thing. But the things Colin has been doing behind our backs, I think you need to see them." Selina's voice was low but struck like a hammer. Colin's face went deathly pale in an instant. He sprang to his feet, and when he saw Vivian in the photo, he panicked. "Selina, listen to me, I can explain, it's just a misunderstanding, she seduced me." Hearing the word seduced, I snorted inwardly. "Vivian, oh Vivian, the white moonlight you treasured, when it comes to interests, she would sell you out without batting an eye. No need to explain." Selina took my hand, fingers entwining tightly. Her hand was cool but soft. I instinctively squeezed back a little. "This is Ethan, my current boyfriend and also a technical backbone of our company. My engagement to Colin ends here. Mom, Dad, this is the person I've chosen, ordinary, perhaps, but faithful." Selina's father slammed his palm on the table, glaring at Colin. Colin's parents looked so embarrassed they wished they could sink into the floor. Colin stared at me, his eyes full of resentment and humiliation. He could never have imagined that the one who stole his fiancé would turn out to be his mistress's jilted ex-boyfriend. Selina won the broken engagement battle decisively. But that was only the beginning. For the next year I had to honor the contract and regularly accompany Selina home to put on the act. Selina's parents lived in a suburban villa. To my surprise, they were very warm and kind. Especially Selina's mother, when she saw me patiently untangling and fixing the smart TV at their home that kept freezing, looked at me as if I were her own son. "Ethan, that girl Selina has had a stubborn streak since she was little. She claws and schemes in the business world, it wears her out. You be more tolerant with her." Selina's mother sighed as she served me some food. "Auntie, don't worry. I might not have much else, but I'm durable. I can patiently fix code that throws 10,000 errors. Selina's little temper is just a tiny bug to me, fixed in minutes." I joked, making the two elders laugh heartily. Selina glanced at me from the side, but the corner of her mouth couldn't help lifting. Leaving the Shin residence, the city's night wind felt a little cool. I took off my suit jacket and draped it over Selina's shoulders. She paused for a moment, but didn't refuse. "Ethan, thank you. My parents were so happy today, it's been a long time since I've seen them smile like that," she said softly. I shoved my hands in my pockets and said self-mockingly, "Taking someone's money and saving them trouble, that's my job. Besides, being the temporary boyfriend of such a beautiful boss like you, I clearly came out ahead. But Selina, let's be honest, next time we have to fake intimacy on camera, could you not pinch my lower back? I'm nearly bruised." Selina snorted a laugh. Under the streetlight, her eyes sparkled, as if filled with broken stars. "That's for realism. Ethan, you're really, quite something." I rubbed my nose, not daring to respond. Yet my heart skipped a beat for no reason. The contract life went on smoothly for more than half a year. During that time, Selina and I crossed paths more and more. It wasn't just small performances in daily life. At the company, we became a tacit partnership. However, the workplace is a battlefield, and calm often foreshadows a larger storm. It was the eve of the quarter's flagship product launch. As a major shareholder, Selina was pushing hard to drive the company's crucial digital transformation project. If this project succeeded, her equity and influence would grow even further. But because of that, she had become a thorn in the side of other interest groups. That morning, the moment I walked into the office, I sensed something utterly strange. Everyone was whispering, their looks at me were full of pity and curiosity. My junior tech guy came up, lowered his voice and said, "Big trouble, Ethan. In the early hours today, the core underlying code of the new system we were about to launch and the core user data were all leaked to a competitor. Not only that, an anonymous tip was sent straight to the board's mailbox, with photos of Selena meeting privately with senior people from the rival, and a large unexplained transfer of funds into Selena's overseas account." My head buzzed. A code leak. Selena betraying the company's interests. That's impossible. Before I could react, the board had already convened an emergency meeting. Selena was suspended pending an internal audit. When I saw Selena step out of the conference room, her face was deathly pale, but her spine remained straight. People around her shied away as if she were some kind of plague. I strode up through everyone's stares and blocked her path. "Selena, are you all right?" Selena looked at me, a flicker of exhaustion and self-mockery in her eyes. "Ethan, are you here to laugh at me too? The board has already decided it was me. All the numeric evidence, IP addresses, the flow of funds, everything points to me. I don't believe it." I looked into her eyes, my voice steady. Selena froze. "I led the team that wrote the code, I architected the system. To export core data without alerting me, you'd need the highest privileges. Your account does have those privileges, but I know your operating habits well. Selena, code doesn't lie, and digital traces don't either. As long as something's done by a human, they'll leave a tell." I smiled, with that particular pride programmers have. "Trust me, there's no bug in this world I can't fix, and no hacker I can't catch." Selena stared at me intently, in her usually cold eyes, a mist of moisture had unexpectedly gathered. In this moment of being besieged from all sides, of the hundreds of people in the company, only I, her contract boyfriend, stood steadfastly by her side. "All right, I trust you," she said. For the next 48 hours I shut myself in the server room. No sleep, no rest, surviving on coffee. I pulled the server access logs from the past 3 months and aligned each entry by timestamp. It was an extremely tedious and massive task, like searching for a single grain of distinctive golden sand in tens of millions of grains. By the second night my eyes were rimmed with red. Finally, when I compared a forged admin login log, I noticed something off. The login IP had passed through multiple jump servers, buried deep. But following the clues, I found that before exporting data this account had frequently exchanged data with an internal workstation. And the owner of that workstation was another senior executive at the company, also a partner with business ties to Colin's family. More tellingly, in that piece of forged malicious code I saw a very familiar technique. It was the coding logic habitually used by Vivian's current boss, the person Colin had placed there. It was a concerted setup. Colin, bitter over the broken engagement, colluded with the company's internal opposition to take Selena down in one fell swoop and, while he was at it, seize her shares. "Got you, you little bastard." I slammed the keyboard hard. I spent the night compiling a 50-page technical audit report, filled with ironclad logic and an immutable blockchain log. It reconstructed the true course of the data leak, completely clearing Selena's name and putting the executives who framed her into legal proceedings. When I slammed that report into the faces of those ill-intentioned shareholders at the board meeting, their expressions were priceless. Selena was restored to her position. That evening, on the deserted rooftop, I slumped into a chair, too exhausted to even move a finger. Selena walked over in high heels, a bottle of wine in her hand. She handed me a glass, then sat down beside me without a second thought, not even worrying that her expensive suit pants might get dusty. "Ethan, thank you. If it weren't for you, I might really have been finished this time." She looked at the distant sunset and spoke softly. "I told you, I'm your technical backbone." I took a sip of beer and said wryly, "But this time you really need to pay up, Selena, I'm going to lose all my hair." Selena turned her head and looked at me intently. Suddenly, she reached out and gently brushed the dark blue circle under my eye. Her fingers were slightly cool, yet felt electric, making my whole body freeze for a moment. "Ethan, I don't want to stay at this lousy company anymore," she said abruptly. "Ah." I was taken aback. After this battle, I've seen through the faces of those partners. I'm planning to withdraw, take back my shares and capital, and strike out on my own. Selina stared at me, ambition glittering in her eyes, and a heat I dared not meet head-on. I'm planning to start a new company, to make digital products that truly belong to us. Ethan, do you want to come with me? She deliberately stressed us. I looked at her and suddenly felt that any gap in status, any class difference, in this moment, didn't matter. Selina, if you start the company yourself, doesn't that make me one of the founding fathers? I grinned. As long as I'm fed, I'll stick with you. But our romance contract is about to expire, how will the salary be calculated then? Selina withdrew her hand and, with a haughty tilt of her chin, said, when the time comes, there will naturally be a higher-level contract waiting for you. It depends on whether you have the guts to sign it. Selina moved like lightning. In less than a month, she completely divested the shares of our former company, and with a huge sum of money and a few trusted core allies, rented an entire floor in the tech park's office building. The early days of the startup were excruciating. Without the shelter of the old company's big platform, everything had to start from zero. Hiring, courting clients, building a new system, the weight of it all fell almost entirely on Selina and me. I was the company's chief technology officer, doubling as chief architect, and sometimes even acting as the network admin fixing routers. Those months we practically treated the office as our home. Once, to get the product prototype running before an investor meeting, my tech team and I pulled 3 straight all-nighters. On the third night, the office tower was silent except for the roar of the server fans. I rubbed my aching neck and was about to head to the pantry to make 2 packets of instant noodles when I turned and found Selina leaning against my desk. She had shed her usual impeccably neat workplace facade, wearing an elegant dress, her hair loosely tied at the back of her head, 2 insulated lunchboxes dangling from her hand. She set the lunchboxes on the table and opened them. Inside were steaming chicken soup and delicate stir-fries. I had the household help make these and bring them over. Wow, long live Selina. My eyes lit up as I grabbed my chopsticks and began to gobble down the food. Selina sat nearby, propping her cheek on her hand as she watched me eat. Ethan, do you regret following me? She asked suddenly, her voice very soft. Regret what? I mumbled, mouth full of beef, my words slurred. You had the old job, though it wasn't a fortune, it was stable, you left work on time. Now you started a company with me, pulling all-nighters until dawn, and shouldering the risk that the product might fail. I put my bowl down and looked at her, tired but still beautiful, then smiled. Selina, do you know when programmers feel the best? What? It's not the year-end bonus, it's when you've written tens of thousands of lines of code yourself and finally run it with no bugs, that feeling of creating a world out of nothing. I said seriously, what we're doing now is creating a new world. And, being by your side watching you shine, I think that's a lot more interesting than sitting at a desk waiting to die. Selina froze. The office's incandescent light fell on her face, and I saw the base of her ears quietly flush. Smooth talker, eat up, finish quickly and get back to work. She stood up a bit flustered, turned her head away, but her voice was absurdly gentle. Half a month later, the company celebrated a staged victory. Thanks to the new generation of high concurrency, strong privacy data systems we had developed, we beat several giants in the bidding, including the company I used to work for, and successfully won City A's largest smart city project of the year. The new company became an overnight sensation, its valuation multiplying several times, and investors' calls nearly flooded Selina's phone. At the celebration banquet, everyone in the company got wildly drunk. As the chief contributor, I was pounded in turn by those tech juniors, and in the end my feet felt like they were walking on cotton. Late at night, after the noise had died down, I walked alone to the fountain plaza beneath the company building to get some air and sober up. Just then, the click of high heels approached from a distance. Selina wore a black evening gown, elegant in the night like a black swan. She came up beside me, looked at my somewhat disheveled state, and smiled helplessly, drank that much again. I stuck out my tongue and said, happy, huh? Selina, our project succeeded. The year term, it seems to have come. Shouldn't we formally terminate our dating contract? At the mention of termination, the smile at the corner of Selina's mouth slowly faded. The night wind lifted her long hair, and the music fountain in the square suddenly sprang up at that moment, its multicolored lights reflecting in her eyes. "Ethan, do you really want to break the contract with me?" she asked, looking straight at me. "Huh? Isn't that what the contract says? I can't keep taking advantage of you forever." I shifted my gaze, feeling a bit guilty. To be honest, after spending so much of the year together, if I say I never fell for her, that would be pure self-deception. But I always felt I was just an ordinary programmer, and she was a lofty queen. What if I want to renew the contract? Selena took a step toward me. The compelling scent hit me. Instinctively I took a step back. Renew. Triple the year-end bonus again. I stammered. Selena laughed in anger, reached out, and pinched my waist hard, exactly like she did back when we were acting. "Ethan, aren't you usually pretty clear-headed when you write code? Why does it become so single-minded at a time like this?" She inhaled deeply, as if making a momentous decision. She stepped forward, closing the last bit of distance between us, and cupped my face with both hands. The sharpness and coldness she'd worn in the boardroom were gone from her eyes, replaced by a gentleness that seemed ready to melt me. "I don't want a contract boyfriend anymore. Ethan, I like you. Not because you helped me catch the leak, not because you're good at coding, but because, when I was at my most miserable and most alone, you reached out and took my hand. Now, I want to ask you, are you willing to be a truly competent boyfriend? The kind with no time limit and no returns." I froze where I stood. The main program in my head crashed completely at that moment. Every CPU core was spinning wildly until only one gilded line remained, "Selena confessed to me." Watching her long lashes tremble slightly from nervousness, all my insecurities and doubts evaporated in an instant. To hell with the white moonlight, to hell with matching family backgrounds. I reached out, took the initiative, wrapped my arms around her slim waist, and pulled her into my embrace. I gave a wicked little smile and looked down at her. "Selena, you asked for this. Once my code is deployed to production, it's hard to uninstall. Are you ready to accept a lifetime of my endless bug-fixing service?" Selena's eyes lit up. She hooked her arm around my neck and tipped her head back. "I welcome it like honey." Beneath the brilliant fountain and the night sky of City A, we kissed each other tightly. 3 years later. The company had successfully gone public and become the darling of the tech world in City A. And Selena and I were about to attend the most important ceremony of our lives. On the wedding day, the house was filled with honored guests. To the sacred strains of the wedding march, I took Selena's hand and walked down the aisle. She wore a pure white wedding gown, so beautiful it stole one's breath away. Just as the groom was giving his speech, my phone suddenly vibrated. I sneaked a glance. It was an email from an unknown number. I opened it and found it had actually been sent by Vivian. The message was long. In essence, she said she had mistaken the man back then. After Colin broke off his engagement with Selena, the Gu family fell into ruin. Colin had not only revealed his violent and selfish nature, he had continued to string other women along, and in the end even dumped Vivian. She was now living in destitution. In the email every word was a tearful confession, asking whether she could ever go back to the past. I stared at the email with no ripple of emotion, even feeling a little amused. The past. Sorry, my system underwent a complete overhaul long ago. The old version's data wasn't even backed up. I immediately blacklisted the number and, while I was at it, deleted the email for good. "What are you looking at, so absorbed?" Selena asked, tilting her head slightly at my side and warning me with her eyes. "Nothing, just got a spam ad, already cleared with one tap." I put my phone away, took her hand, and accepted the microphone the host handed me. I looked at the woman in front of me, my wife, my boss, my lover. I smiled and said, "Dear friends and family, as a programmer I've designed countless system architectures in my life. But today, I want to announce the highest level, most perfect architecture of my life, becoming Miss Selena's lawful, sole, lifelong husband. In this system there is no deceit, no betrayal, all the code runs only for her. Honey, please guide me for the rest of my life." Thunderous applause filled the hall. Selena's eyes were slightly red, but her smile was dazzling. She snatched the microphone and added proudly, "Ethan, remember what you said today. If the system dares to glitch again, I'll personally go backstage and rewrite your underlying code." Absolute obedience, my queen. Amid the cheering of the crowd, I kissed my queen once more. Life is always full of surprises and imperfections, but as long as you find the person willing to stand beside you to fix mistakes and start over, after all the turns and detours, life will eventually reach its best ending.